chosen one. Why does your heart race before I even speak? Why did your finger stop scrolling at this exact moment? Why does something deep in your spirit already know that what I'm about to tell you will shatter everything you thought you knew about your destiny? Here's the shocking truth they don't want you to hear. You've been living on borrowed time. Every sunrise you've witnessed, every breath you've taken, every moment you've survived when others didn't, it's all been leading to 3 days that will determine whether you step into your inheritance or forfeit what heaven wrote with your name on it. If these words find you, heaven is pressing pause on your life right now. The noise around you is fading, the distractions are silencing, because what I'm about to reveal about the 13th of September, 14th and 15th isn't just another prophetic word, it's your final alarm clock before the window closes forever. Listen carefully, beloved. These aren't ordinary dates on your calendar, they're prophetic hinges of destiny carved into eternity before you took your first breath. Hell has been working overtime to keep you distracted from this moment because the enemy knows something about these 3 days that your conscious mind hasn't grasped yet. What if I told you that one day, just one day, carried the weight of your entire eternity? What if missing it didn't just delay your breakthrough, but cost you everything heaven had prepared for your bloodline? What if the very reason you've survived every storm, every betrayal, every dark night of the soul was to position you for this prophetic intersection? Before we go deeper into this mystery, I want to pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and let your faith lead your heart. Right now, an alarm is ringing in the spirit. You can either hit the snooze button and miss the appointment heaven scheduled for you before time began, or you can rise and answer the call that will echo through generations. The choice is yours, chosen one, but choose quickly because the 13th of September, 14th and 15th won't wait for your convenience. If you feel the stirring in your spirit right now, if something ancient is awakening in your chest, comment, "I hear the alarm" below. That's your first prophetic step of agreement. That's you telling heaven you're ready to stop sleeping through your destiny. The alarm is ringing. Will you answer? Why have you carried burdens that weren't meant for your shoulders? Why does September always feel different, heavier, more charged with invisible electricity? Why do you wake up at 3 a.m. with your heart pounding, sensing battles you can't see, but somehow know are real? Dear chosen one, what I'm about to reveal will explain the weight you've carried for decades. The sleepless nights when your spirit wrestled with forces your mind couldn't name. The rejection that cut deeper than logic could explain. The family fractures that seemed orchestrated by an unseen hand. You've been living in the crossfire of a war most people don't even know exists. For 70, 80, maybe 90 years, you've felt it. That sense of being pulled in opposite directions. One moment, peace floods your soul like morning light through stained glass. The next, darkness presses against your chest like a 1,000-pound weight. You thought it was just life. You thought it was just getting older. You thought it was just you. But it wasn't just you. Listen carefully to what Scripture reveals in Ephesians 6:12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world. You haven't been fighting depression, you've been fighting demons. You haven't been battling loneliness, you've been resisting a systematic campaign to isolate God's chosen ones. The enemy saw what heaven placed inside you before you even understood it yourself. Think back to your childhood. Were you the one who sensed things others couldn't? Did animals gravitate toward you without explanation? Did you dream dreams that came true? Feel the pain of strangers? Know things you shouldn't have known? That wasn't your imagination running wild. That was recognition. Your spirit recognizing the frequency of eternity, while others remained tuned to the temporary. and hell took notice. Every betrayal you've endured wasn't random. That spouse who walked away when you needed them most, that wasn't just marital failure, it was strategic warfare. Those children who turned distant, those friends who abandoned you when life got difficult. The enemy was systematically removing your support system because he knew what was coming. He knew the 13th of September, 14th and 15th were approaching. Picture this in your mind. A massive tug of war, but the rope isn't made of hemp, it's made of human soul. On one end, angels strain with muscles of light, pulling you toward your divine inheritance. On the other end, shadows with claws like razors drag you toward despair, toward giving up, toward missing the very appointment heaven scheduled before time began. Your soul is the prize they're fighting for. But here's the mystery that will shatter everything you thought you knew about your struggles. The enemy fights hardest right before breakthrough. The darkness becomes most vicious in the hour before dawn. Hell unleashes its fiercest assault when heaven is about to unveil its greatest victory. Think about Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. Luke 22:44 tells us, being in an anguish, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat was, as it were, great drops of blood falling down to the ground. The battle was so intense that his very blood wept. But that agony preceded the resurrection that shook the foundations of death itself. You've been in your own Gethsemane, haven't you? Nights when your prayers felt like bleeding. Mornings when you couldn't explain the weight crushing your chest. Seasons when you wondered if God had forgotten your address. But what if I told you that every drop of spiritual sweat, every tear you've cried in secret, every moment you felt like you were dying inside, was evidence that something magnificent was about to be born? The silent war behind your life intensifies in September, because September holds the key to your destiny. The enemy knows that these 3 days, the 13th, 14th and 15th, carry prophetic weight that could shift your entire bloodline. He's been working overtime to exhaust you, to drain your spiritual batteries, to make you too weary to recognize the sound of heaven's trumpet when it finally blows. But you're still here. After everything hell has thrown at you, the financial attacks that should have destroyed you, the health scares that should have taken you out, the emotional blows that should have left you broken beyond repair, you're still breathing, you're still believing, you're still fighting. That's not human resilience, beloved. That's divine preservation. Job understood this warfare when he declared in Job 14:14, "If a man die, shall he live again? All the days of my appointed time will I wait, till my change come." Even in his darkest hour, surrounded by accusers and covered in boils, Job knew something his friends didn't understand. There's an appointed time for change, a divine intersection where suffering transforms into glory. Your appointed time is the 13th of September, 14th and 15th. The silent war that's raged behind your life for decades is about to reach its climax. But this time, you won't be fighting alone in the dark. This time, you'll know what you're fighting for. This time, you'll understand that every battle scar you carry is proof that you survived what was designed to kill you. If you felt the heaviness of September before, that unexplainable weight that settles on your shoulders when the calendar turns to this sacred month, raise your hand in the comments with 999. Divine completion and new beginnings are calling your name. But the question burning in my spirit right now is this. Now that you know you've been in a war, are you ready to discover who's been fighting on your side? Dear chosen one, you're about to discover why heaven has been orchestrating your entire life around 3 days that most people will sleep through. But first, let me ask you something that will cut deep into your soul. How many divine appointments have you missed because you thought they were just ordinary Tuesday mornings? These 3 days, the 13th of September, 14th and 15th, aren't random marks on your calendar. They form what Scripture calls a divine bridge, and every step you take across this bridge determines whether you walk into your inheritance or watch it slip through your fingers forever. The 13th of September stands as the day of remembrance and realignment. This isn't about dwelling in yesterday's pain. This is about God healing the hemorrhaging wounds of your past so they don't poison your future. You see, beloved, heaven has been collecting every tear you've shed, every prayer you've whispered in desperation, every night you've wondered if anyone even notices your struggle. Psalm 56:8 declares, "You keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle." On the 13th of September, God opens that bottle and transforms your tears into the oil of anointing. But here's what will shock you: if you refuse to let Him heal those old wounds, they become the very chains that keep you from crossing into your promise. How many of you are still bleeding from betrayals that happened 20 years ago? How many are still carrying shame from mistakes your own children have forgotten? The 13th of September is heaven's divine surgery room, but you must choose to lie on the operating table. The 14th of September, listen carefully to this, is the in-between day. This is the most dangerous 24 hours of your entire spiritual life, because it's when you're standing between what was and what's coming. You're no longer who you used to be, but you're not yet who you're becoming. And in that sacred space, every voice of doubt, every whisper of fear, every echo of your past failures will scream at you to turn back. This is your Jordan River moment. Moses brought the Israelites to the edge, but he couldn't cross over. That was reserved for Joshua. And beloved, you've been wandering in circles for 40 years of your own spiritual wilderness, but the 14th of September is when heaven says, the circling stops here. Joshua 3-5 records the moment. Consecrate yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do amazing things among you. Tomorrow, not next year when you feel more ready, not next month when your circumstances improve. Tomorrow. But here's the terrifying truth: if you don't consecrate yourself on the 14th, if you don't separate yourself from the old mindsets, the old fears, the old limitations, you'll miss the miracle that's scheduled for the 15th. The 15th of September erupts as the day of release and acceleration. This is when heaven opens the floodgates, and everything that's been delayed, denied, and deferred comes rushing toward you like a tsunami of blessing. But tsunamis are dangerous to those who aren't prepared, and life-giving to those who are positioned correctly. Isaiah 43-19 thunders across eternity. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. On the 15th of September, God doesn't just open a door, He demolishes the entire wall that's been blocking your breakthrough. But here's what most people don't understand about divine acceleration. It requires your cooperation. When God decides to speed up your life, everything that can't handle the velocity gets left behind. Relationships that drain you, habits that bind you, thought patterns that limit you, they all get torn away in the acceleration. This 3-day bridge isn't a casual stroll through a park. Each step demands everything you have. Miss one step, and the bridge collapses beneath your feet. Sleep through one day, and you forfeit what took decades to prepare. You want to know why these days carry such prophetic weight? Because they're what Scripture calls thin places, moments when the veil between heaven and earth becomes gossamer, when God's whisper becomes a roar, when the impossible becomes inevitable. But I need to warn you about something that will make your blood run cold. The enemy has been watching your calendar too. He knows what's coming on these 3 days, and he's been planning countermoves for months. Expect sudden emergencies on the 12th of September. Expect relationship conflicts on the 13th of September. Expect doubt to assault your mind on the 14th of September. These aren't coincidences, they're strategic attacks designed to pull you off the bridge before you reach the other side. The question that will haunt you for the rest of your life is this: when heaven extends the bridge of your breakthrough, will you have the courage to take the first step, or will you let fear convince you to stay on familiar ground while your destiny disappears into the horizon? Because, beloved, some bridges only appear once in a lifetime, and this one has your name carved into every plank. Chosen one, I need you to stop right where you are and listen to what I'm about to tell you. Because what the enemy has convinced you was your greatest failure, what the world labeled as your breakdown, what you've carried as shame for decades. It was never punishment. It was preparation. Do you remember those nights? Those 3 a.m. moments when you couldn't sleep because the weight in your chest felt like it would crush you. When you whispered prayers through tears you thought no one would ever see. When you cried so hard you wondered if there were any tears left in your body. Here's what hell never wanted you to know. Every single tear was currency in heaven's economy. David understood this mystery when he wrote in Psalm 56:8, "You keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle. You have recorded each one in your book." Think about that for a moment. The creator of the universe, the one who spoke galaxies into existence, has been collecting your tears like precious diamonds, not because he enjoys your pain, but because he knew they were purchasing something you couldn't see yet. That divorce that nearly destroyed you. Those tears bought you discernment to help others navigate broken relationships. That business that failed when you had everything invested. Those tears purchased wisdom that will guide you through supernatural provision. That diagnosis that made you question if God had forgotten you. Those tears were the down payment on a testimony that will heal thousands. But here's where it gets deeper, beloved. Your tears weren't just personal currency. They were prophetic investment. Every drop that fell was God saying, "I'm not wasting this pain. I'm watering the ground for a harvest that will feed generations." You've been asking the wrong question all these years. You've been asking, "God, why did I have to go through this?" But heaven's been answering a different question. How much is their breakthrough worth? And apparently, beloved, your breakthrough was worth every tear you've shed. Think about a farmer for a moment. He doesn't plant seeds in dry, hard ground. He waits for the soil to be broken, tilled, watered. Your tears weren't evidence that God had abandoned you. They were evidence that he was preparing the soil of your heart for something so magnificent that it required that level of preparation. But here's what's going to shake you to your core. The 13th of September, 14th, and 15th aren't just random dates circled on heaven's calendar. They're harvest time. The same God who collected every tear is about to release the return on his investment. But only if you're ready to stop mourning what was and start embracing what island. Your sorrow bought the doorway, but your obedience will carry you through it. This is why the enemy has been whispering lies to you lately. You've cried too much. You're too broken. You'll never recover from what you've been through. He knows that if you ever realize your tears were seeds instead of signs of defeat, you'll become unstoppable. If you ever understand that your pain was prophetic preparation instead of pointless suffering, you'll rise with an authority that makes demons tremble. Right now, someone watching this has been carrying guilt about crying. You've been ashamed of your tears, apologizing for your emotion, trying to be stronger than you feel. Stop it. Your tears were holy water on sacred ground. They were prayers too deep for words. They were the language your spirit spoke when your mouth couldn't form the words. But here's the urgency burning in my chest right now. You cannot carry yesterday's tears into tomorrow's triumph. You cannot drag the weight of past sorrow into the doorway of present breakthrough. This is your moment to lay down the burden and pick up the blessing. The soil has been watered, the ground has been prepared, the seeds have been planted with your tears. But now, right now, is harvest time, and harvest requires action. It requires you to stop staring at the empty field of yesterday and start gathering the fruit of today. If you're ready to stop letting your tears define you as broken and start letting them crown you as chosen. If you're ready to stop seeing your pain as punishment and start seeing it as preparation. If you're ready to step through the doorway that your sorrow purchased, then type in the comments right now. I rise now, not tomorrow, not when you feel ready. Right now. That's your line in the sand. That's your declaration that you refuse to waste one more day, mourning what was, when God is ready to release what island. Because, beloved, your tears were never wasted. They were the down payment on a breakthrough so massive that all of hell is about to regret every tear they caused you to shed. But the transaction isn't complete until you rise to claim what your sorrow already bought. The doorway is open. Your tears paid the price, but only your obedience will carry you through it. What are you waiting for? Chosen one, we've reached the moment of absolute truth, the moment where heaven draws a line in the sand and declares, no more fence, sitting, no more maybe tomorrow, no more living in the gray zone of indecision. Right now, as these words pierce through the noise of your everyday existence, you're standing at the same crossroads that has defined every generation of the chosen. The same intersection where Moses stood before Pharaoh, where David faced Goliath, where Esther approached the king's throne uninvited. But here's what's going to shake you to your core. You're not just choosing between two options. You're choosing between two destinies, two bloodlines, two eternal legacies. And the weight of that choice is about to crush every excuse you've been hiding behind. Look at your hands right now. Go ahead, look at them. In one hand you're holding chains, cold, familiar, comfortable chains that have been your companions for decades. These aren't just any chains, beloved. These are the chains of familiar pain, the chains of acceptable mediocrity, the chains of I'm too old, I'm too broken, I've missed my chance. You know these chains intimately, don't you? They whisper to you every morning, stay safe, don't risk it. You've been hurt before. Remember what happened last time you believed God for something big. These chains feel protective because pain you know feels safer than glory you've never experienced. But in your other hand, and this is where your breath should catch in your throat, you're holding a crown. Not a decorative piece of jewelry, but a crown of divine authority, of supernatural responsibility, of generational breakthrough. This crown carries weight, because crowns always do. It represents the calling you've run from, the destiny you've questioned, the assignment heaven has been trying to place on your head for 70, 80, maybe 90 years. Here's the brutal truth that's going to cut through your soul like a sword. You cannot hold both. The very act of gripping those familiar chains makes your hands too occupied to receive the crown God is lowering toward your head. Think about the children of Israel standing at the Red Sea. Behind them, the thundering hooves of Pharaoh's army, the chains of Egypt pursuing them, trying to drag them back into bondage they had grown accustomed to. Before them, waters that defied every law of nature, waiting to part at the command of faith. Exodus 14:13 records Moses' words that should be echoing in your spirit right now. Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. But here's what most preachers won't tell you. The Israelites had to make a choice before the waters parted. They had to turn their backs on Egypt, on the familiar, the predictable, the safe, and step toward the impossible. The miracle didn't happen while they stood paralyzed in indecision. It happened when they moved. Beloved, the 13th of September, 14th and 15th are your Red Sea moment. Behind you lie the chains of every limitation you've accepted, every dream you've buried, every voice that told you your time had passed. Before you stand the parted waters of divine possibility, waiting for your feet to touch the dry ground of your destiny. But the enemy of your soul knows something you're still learning. Chains feel lighter than crowns until you understand what crowns actually carry. Chains carry only your personal pain. Crowns carry the weight of generational blessing. Chains affect only you. Crowns affect everyone connected to your obedience. This is why your decision in these prophetic days isn't just about your comfort, it's about your legacy. When you choose the crown, you're not just changing your story, you're rewriting the ending for your children, your grandchildren, and generations you'll never meet who will rise or fall, based on whether you had the courage to release familiar chains and embrace an unfamiliar crown. Romans 8:17 declares, "You are heirs of God and co-heirs with Christ." Co-heirs don't wear chains, beloved. They wear crowns. But the inheritance comes with responsibility, with weight, with the holy burden of carrying heaven's authority into a world that has forgotten what true power looks like. Here's where the rubber meets the road, where theory crashes into reality. Today, this very moment, you decide what rests on your head for the remainder of your days on this earth. Will it be the familiar weight of chains that keep you bound to yesterday's failures, or will it be the glorious weight of a crown that positions you for tomorrow's miracles? The clock is ticking. The 13th of September is approaching like a freight train, and heaven will not slow down to accommodate your hesitation. This window of decision will not remain open indefinitely. If you choose the crown, if you're ready to lay down the chains of limitation and step into the authority heaven has been preparing for you, then declare it now. Type 444 inches, the comments below. This isn't superstition. This is spiritual mathematics. 4 represents foundation, stability, the unshakable bedrock of divine obedience. When you type those 3 4s, you're declaring to heaven, earth, and hell itself, I choose the crown. I choose the weight of destiny over the comfort of chains. But understand this, chosen one. Once you make this choice, there's no going back. Once the crown touches your head, chains will never fit the same way again. You'll never again be satisfied with small dreams, small prayers, or small expectations. The Red Sea is parting. The crown is descending. The choice is yours. What will it be, beloved? Crown or chains? Destiny or default? The throne room of your calling or the prison cell of your comfort zone? The waters are waiting for your answer. Listen to me, chosen one. The reason your life has felt like a battlefield isn't because you're doing something wrong. It's because you're doing something right. The reason every step forward feels like you're walking through quicksand isn't coincidence, it's confirmation. You are under attack because you are dangerous to hell. The Apostle Paul revealed this cosmic truth in Ephesians 6:12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. This isn't poetry, beloved. This is your reality. Every sleepless night, every financial pressure that appears from nowhere, every relationship that suddenly turns cold, these aren't random occurrences. They're strategic warfare. Think about this for a moment. When was the last time you felt truly at peace? When was the last time your mind wasn't racing with worry, your heart wasn't heavy with unexplained burdens? The enemy doesn't waste ammunition on empty targets. He doesn't deploy his fiercest weapons against people who pose no threat to his kingdom. But you? You've been in his crosshairs since the day you were born. September has always carried a trembling in the spiritual atmosphere, hasn't it? You've felt it for years, even when you couldn't name it. That heaviness that settles over your spirit as autumn approaches, that restlessness that keeps you awake at 3 a.m. That's not seasonal depression, dear one. That's spiritual warfare, intensifying because the enemy knows what these prophetic days represent. The kingdom of darkness operates like a master chess player, thinking 20 moves ahead. He saw the 13th of September, 14th, and the 15th of March keyed on heaven's calendar before you were born. He's been positioning his pieces for decades, waiting for this moment when destiny would demand your response. His tactics haven't changed since the Garden of Eden. Distraction, delay, discouragement. He doesn't need to destroy you outright, he just needs to keep you busy, confused, and convinced that your struggles are normal. He whispers that your exhaustion is just aging, that your loneliness is just life, that your battles are just bad luck. But chosen ones know better. Imagine 2 soldiers walking through the same battlefield. The first strolls casually, unaware that war rages around him. He's an easy target, unarmed, unguarded, unconscious of the danger. The second soldier moves with purpose, eyes alert, weapons ready. He feels every bullet that flies past, hears every explosion, but he's not afraid because he knows what he's fighting for. Which soldier are you, beloved? For 70, 80, maybe 90 years, you've been that second soldier. You've felt the intensity of the battle even when others around you seemed oblivious. You've carried burdens that weren't yours to carry, fought battles that weren't yours to fight, endured attacks that seemed to come from nowhere. Now you know why. You've been walking through a war zone disguised as ordinary life. The enemy's latest strategy is particularly insidious. He's convinced an entire generation of believers that spiritual warfare is outdated, that demons are metaphors, that the clash of kingdoms is symbolic rather than literal. He's lulled the church to sleep with comfort and convenience while he positions his forces for the final assault. But the 13th of September, 14th and 15th represent something that terrifies him. These are days when the veil grows thin, when heaven's authority breaks through earth's resistance, when chosen ones like you finally understand the true scope of the battle. The intensification you've been feeling isn't your imagination. Hospital emergency rooms see a spike in unexplained anxiety attacks during these prophetic windows. Marriage counselors report increased conflict. Financial advisors witness sudden market volatility that defies explanation. The enemy is throwing everything he has at God's people because he knows his time is short. Here's what hell doesn't want you to realize. Your survival through decades of warfare isn't luck, it's evidence. Evidence that you carry something he desperately wants to destroy. Evidence that your prayers shake his kingdom. Evidence that your very existence threatens his plans. The kingdom of darkness only fights what it fears. And you, chosen one, you are dangerous to hell. Every tear you've cried in secret was liquid warfare. Every prayer you whispered in desperation was a spiritual missile launched into enemy territory. Every time you got back up when staying down would have been easier, that was you winning battles in realms you couldn't see. But the intensity is about to reach its peak. The 13th of September, 14th and 15th aren't just marking time, they're marking triumph. The very reason the enemy has fought you so hard is about to be revealed. The assignment you've been carrying in secret is about to go public. Right now, as these words penetrate your spirit, something is shifting in the atmosphere around your life. Can you feel it? That electricity in the air? That sense that invisible armies are repositioning themselves? The clash of kingdoms isn't just intensifying, it's reaching its climax. The question that will determine everything is this: will you remain an unaware soldier, or will you finally take up the weapons heaven has been offering you all along? Say it aloud right now, wherever you are. I am armed and awake. Don't whisper it, declare it. Let hell hear the authority in your voice. Let heaven witness your awakening. That declaration isn't just words, it's warfare. And the enemy trembles when the chosen ones finally remember who they are. But understanding the battle is only the beginning. What you discover next about your true identity will change everything you thought you knew about why this war was worth fighting. Chosen one, let me ask you something that cuts straight to the bone of your soul. Why have you spent 70, 80, maybe 90 years feeling like you don't belong anywhere? Why does every family gathering leave you feeling like a stranger at your own table? Why do you sit in your living room at 3 a.m., staring at walls that have witnessed decades of your silent tears, wondering if anyone at all, truly understands the weight you carry? Here's what the world never told you about that crushing loneliness. Here's what the church never explained about those endless years of feeling forgotten, overlooked, dismissed as just another senior citizen taking up space in a world that worships youth. Your silence was never punishment. It was preparation. Listen to me carefully, dear one. Every night you've lain awake feeling like God forgot your address. Every morning you've risen wondering if your voice even matters anymore. Every moment you felt invisible in a world that seems to rush past you. All of it has been shaping something in you that this generation desperately needs to hear. You think you've been sidelined, but you've been in seminary. You think you've been forgotten, but you've been forged. Look at Moses, 80 years old when God called him from a burning bush. 80. Where had he been for 4 decades before that divine encounter? In the wilderness of Midian, tending sheep, feeling like his purpose had passed him by. The man who once thought he was destined for Egyptian palaces found himself in desert silence, his voice rusty from disuse, his confidence shattered by failure. But here's what Moses didn't understand during those long, lonely years. God wasn't wasting his time. God was preparing his voice. Every sunrise Moses watched over those hills, every night he spent under infinite stars, every moment of solitude was teaching him to hear the voice of the Almighty above the noise of human ambition. The wilderness doesn't create weakness, beloved. It creates warriors. It doesn't produce echoes. It births thunder. And you, oh, chosen one, you've been in your wilderness for decades, haven't you? Maybe it was the wilderness of widowhood, sitting alone at a dinner table set for two. Maybe it was the wilderness of watching your children grow distant, speaking a language of busyness you never learned. Maybe it was the wilderness of forced retirement, suddenly told your decades of experience no longer mattered in a world obsessed with the next young thing. But what if I told you something that would revolutionize everything you believe about those painful years? What if every moment of isolation was God's way of clearing the noise so you could hear his voice with crystal clarity? What if every season of being misunderstood was training your ear to distinguish truth from the lies this world speaks? John the Baptist understood this mystery. Scripture tells us he lived in the wilderness, eating locusts and wild honey, wearing camel's hair, looking nothing like the polished religious leaders of his day. People thought he was strange, radical, too intense. But when John opened his mouth, his voice shook nations. Why? Because the wilderness had stripped away everything that wasn't essential, leaving only the pure, unfiltered word of God. "Prepare the way of the Lord," John thundered from the desert. His voice cut through centuries of religious tradition like a sword through silk. The wilderness had given him something the temple-trained couldn't manufacture: authenticity forged in fire and solitude. Dear one, your wilderness years weren't wasted. They were a divine conspiracy to give you a voice that cannot be manufactured, cannot be imitated, cannot be silenced by the noise of this age. Even Jesus, the Son of the living God, spent 40 days in the wilderness before his ministry began. 40 days of hunger, temptation, spiritual warfare. But he emerged with power that made demons tremble and storms obey. The wilderness didn't weaken him. It revealed who he truly was. And now, as the 13th of September, 14th and 15th approach like a freight train of destiny, God is calling his wilderness voices out of hiding. He's summoning those who've been shaped by silence to speak with thunder. He's awakening voices that carry the authority of the tested, the weight of the weathered, the power of those who've learned to hear God's whisper above the world's roar. You've been trained in the school of solitude. You've earned your degree in the University of Disappointment. You've been refined in the furnace of forgotten dreams. But every tear you've cried in secret has been liquid preparation for the voice you're about to discover. Your wilderness voice will cut through the noise of this age like nothing else can. While younger voices shout louder, yours will speak deeper. While others chase platforms, you'll carry presence. While they build brands, you'll bear truth. But here's the urgency that should grip your heart right now. The world is drowning in noise but starving for authentic voice. This generation needs to hear from someone who's walked through the valley of the shadow of death and lived to tell about it. They need words from someone who's been refined by decades of faithfulness, tested by years of trials, and proven by a lifetime of refusing to quit when quitting would have been easier. The wilderness shaped your voice. Now these prophetic days of September are calling it forth. You cannot stay silent any longer. The world needs what your decades of silence have created. Say it aloud right now, wherever you are. I will not be silent. Let those words echo in your living room, your bedroom, your kitchen. Let them wake up vocal cords that have been dormant too long. Let them activate the voice that wilderness prepared but silence has kept hidden. Because, chosen one, your wilderness is ending, but your voice, your thunderous, earth-shaking, heaven-sent voice, is just beginning to rise. Chosen one, I need to ask you something that's going to cut deep. Why do you think your life has been so hard? Why have you endured betrayals that would have broken lesser souls? Why have you walked through fires that consumed others completely, yet here you sit, scarred but not destroyed, wounded but still breathing? Listen to me carefully, beloved. What you've been calling your greatest failures, what you've been naming your deepest shame, what you've been labeling as evidence that God forgot your address, it was never punishment. It was preparation. The prophet Malachi understood something that will revolutionize how you see every tear you've cried. In Malachi 3:3, the word declares, "He will sit as a refiner and purifier of silver. He will purify the Levites and refine them like gold and silver." Did you catch that? He will sit, not stand in haste, not rush the process. He sits because refining requires patience, precision, and presence. You think that bankruptcy at 65 was your downfall? No, chosen one. That was heaven stripping away everything that couldn't survive eternity. You believe that diagnosis was your death sentence? It was actually your wake-up call. You're convinced that betrayal from your own children was abandonment by God. It was Him removing everyone who couldn't handle the anointing He was about to place on your life. Every single fire you've walked through, the divorce that left you sleeping on friends' couches, the business that collapsed when you needed it most, the depression that made you question if tomorrow was worth seeing, none of it was random. Hell didn't win those battles. Heaven was winning the war. But here's what's going to shake you to your core. The refiner doesn't just throw gold into any fire. Common metal gets common heat. But precious metals? They require temperatures that would vaporize everything else. Your fire has been so intense, so prolonged, so seemingly unbearable, because you carry something in your spiritual DNA that hell recognizes and heaven protects. Think about this for a moment. When a silversmith refines precious metal, how does he know the process is complete? When he can see his own reflection in the surface. Chosen one, God has been sitting beside your furnace for 70, 80, maybe 90 years, watching, waiting, refining, until He could see His own image reflected in your character. That's why betrayal couldn't make you bitter. His reflection was forming. That's why poverty couldn't make you steal. His image was emerging. That's why sickness couldn't make you curse His name. His likeness was being revealed. You survived what should have killed you, because gold doesn't burn. Diamonds aren't destroyed by pressure, they're created by it. And you, beloved, you are both gold and diamond, forged in furnaces that would have reduced ordinary souls to ash. Here's the shocking truth about your refining. The fire wasn't trying to consume you, it was trying to reveal you. Every year you spent in the wilderness wasn't wasted time, it was developing time. Every closed door wasn't rejection, it was redirection. Every season of silence wasn't abandonment, it was incubation. And now, as these prophetic days of September approach, can you smell it? Can you sense it? You no longer reek of smoke. You no longer carry the stench of your struggles. When people look at you now, they don't see a victim of circumstances, they see a survivor who glows with an unexplainable peace. The refining fire has done its work, chosen one. What emerges from you now isn't the bitter residue of what you lost, it's the pure gold of what you gained. Your words carry weight because they were forged in flame. Your prayers have power because they were tested by fire. Your presence brings peace because you learned to worship in the furnace. But the 13th of September, 14th and 15th aren't just about recognizing what the fire accomplished, they're about stepping into what the refining purchased. The furnace was your preparation. These prophetic days are your presentation. Heaven is about to display what 30, 40, 50 years of refining fire has produced. The question burning in the atmosphere right now is this: will you finally see yourself as heaven sees you, not as damaged goods marked down for clearance, but as refined gold ready for the King's treasury? Comment "I am refined" below, and let heaven and hell both see your testimony. Let the enemy know that his fires only made you more valuable. Let the angels witness that you finally understand what the master refiner was creating all along. Because, chosen one, the fire that tried to destroy you has actually prepared you for the glory that's about to be revealed through you in these coming days. Chosen one, do you feel that weight settling on your shoulders right now? That heaviness that's been pressing down on you for weeks, maybe months? You've been calling it stress. You've been calling it the burden of age. You've been calling it the weight of a life that feels too heavy to carry. But what if I told you that weight isn't a burden at all? What if that pressure you feel isn't life crushing you down, but heaven pressing something magnificent onto your head? Listen to me carefully, beloved. That heaviness you've been carrying isn't the weight of your problems, it's the weight of your crown. You see, there comes a moment in every chosen life when the Almighty looks down from his throne and declares, "Enough. This one has been tested long enough. This one has proven faithful in the valley. Now it's time to crown them for the mountain." And right now, in these prophetic days of the 13th of September, 14th and 15th, invisible hands are lowering a crown of fire and gold onto your weathered head. The very head that has been bowed in sorrow is about to be lifted in sovereignty. David understood this mystery when he wrote in Psalm 8-5, "You have crowned them with glory and honor. Not will crown, not might crown, have crowned." Past tense, already done. The crown was placed before you even knew you were royalty. But here's what breaks my heart about so many of God's chosen ones in this hour. You've been so focused on the chains around your ankles that you've forgotten about the crown hovering over your head. You've been so consumed with what's holding you down that you've missed what's lifting you up. How many mornings have you awakened feeling defeated before your feet even hit the floor? How many nights have you laid your head on that pillow wondering if tomorrow would bring anything different? How many times have you looked in the mirror and seen a victim instead of royalty? The enemy has been playing the greatest con game in history on your mind. He's convinced you that your grey hair is a sign of decline when it's actually a crown of wisdom. He's made you believe that your slower steps mean you're falling behind when they're actually the measured pace of someone who carries authority. But tonight, in this sacred moment, heaven is pulling back the veil. The throne room of the Most High is opening before your eyes, and you can see what's been true all along. You're not a beggar hoping for scraps. You're royalty who forgot your lineage. Think about this for a moment. Every trial you've survived, every betrayal that didn't break you, every financial storm that didn't destroy you, every health scare that didn't defeat you, none of that was random. It was royal training. It was crown preparation. It was heaven forging a ruler in the furnace of adversity. A crown isn't just jewelry, beloved. It's responsibility. It's authority. It's the visible sign that you've been entrusted with something precious. And the weight you feel isn't the weight of your past, it's the weight of your calling pressing down on your present. But here's where it gets dangerous. Here's where the enemy launches his final assault. Right now, as heaven moves to crown you, hell is whispering its loudest lies. You're too old for a crown. You're too broken. You've made too many mistakes. Who do you think you are? But what if who you think you are has nothing to do with who heaven says you are? What if your age isn't a disqualification but a coronation requirement? What if your scars aren't shame marks but royal insignia? The truth is this: God doesn't crown the perfect. He crowns the proven. He doesn't anoint the young and untested. He anoints the seasoned and surrendered. Every line on your face tells a story of battles won. Every grey hair speaks of wisdom earned. Every slow step carries the weight of someone who has learned not to rush ahead of God's timing. Right now, as these words wash over your spirit, can you feel it? That stirring in your chest, that recognition in your soul. That's not emotion, dear one. That's coronation. That's the moment when heaven says, bow your head, not in defeat, but in preparation. Because I'm about to place on you what I've been preparing for 70, 80, 90 years. Chosen one, this is your moment. This is your the 13th of September, 14th, 15th revelation. The crown isn't coming someday. The crown is descending now. Bow your head, because heaven is crowning you now. If you feel the weight of glory settling on your spirit, if you sense the authority of ages flowing into your bones, if you know that this moment is marking you forever, type 777 inches, the comments below. That's your declaration of completion and divine coronation. That's you telling heaven, I receive what you're placing on my head. But remember, beloved, crowns are never meant to be worn alone. And what heaven is about to reveal about your coronation will shake every foundation of limitation you've ever accepted about your golden years. Chosen one, you've been thinking too small. You've been treating this prophetic window like it's about your personal breakthrough, your individual healing, your private victory. But what if I told you that your obedience in these 3 days of September isn't just about you? What if your yes or no carries the weight of nations? Listen to me carefully, beloved. When heaven marks prophetic days, it's never for one person alone. These dates are cosmic hinges where individual choices swing open gates that affect entire bloodlines, entire communities, entire nations. You think you're just making a personal decision, but you're actually holding the key to doors that will impact millions of lives. Think about Joseph, one Hebrew slave in an Egyptian prison, forgotten, betrayed, abandoned by everyone who should have stood by him. But when Pharaoh called him from that dungeon to interpret dreams, Joseph's obedience didn't just save his own life. Genesis 41-57 tells us, "And all the world came to Egypt to buy grain from Joseph, because the famine was severe everywhere." One man's response to God's revelation preserved entire nations from starvation. Or consider Queen Esther, an orphaned Jewish girl who could have stayed quiet, stayed safe, stayed hidden in the palace. But when Mordecai told her, "Who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this," her courage didn't just save her own neck. Esther 9:16 declares that 75,000 enemies of the Jewish people were defeated because one woman said yes to her calling. Your yes isn't just for you, dear one. It's for bloodlines that stretch into eternity. It's for nations that need what you carry. It's for generations not yet born who will rise or fall based on whether you step through this prophetic door. But here's what breaks my heart about so many seniors in America today. You've been convinced that your time of influence is over. You've been told to step aside, be quiet, let the younger generation handle the big decisions. Society has programmed you to believe that once you hit 65, 70, 75, your voice doesn't matter anymore. That's a lie straight from the pit of hell. You are not retired from the kingdom of God. You are spiritual generals who have been through more battles than the younger warriors can imagine. Your prayers carry the weight of experience. Your intercession carries the authority of tested faith. Your obedience carries the power to shift entire nations because you've learned to trust God when everything else fails. Moses was 80 when he delivered a nation. Caleb was 85 when he conquered his mountain. Anna was 84 when she prophesied over the infant Jesus. Your age isn't your limitation, it's your weapon. Your years aren't your weakness, they're your strength. Right now, across America, the spiritual atmosphere is thick with confusion, division, and despair. Politicians are failing. Systems are crumbling. Young people are drowning in hopelessness. But heaven isn't looking to Washington, D.C. for the solution. Heaven is looking to kitchen tables where grandmothers pray, to rocking chairs where grandfathers intercede, to retirement homes where the saints of God still have fire in their bones. Picture this, a massive gate, ancient and heavy, standing between this nation and its destiny. That gate has been sealed for decades by compromise, by prayerlessness, by the church going to sleep. But the 13th of September, 14th and 15th are the days when heaven has decreed that gate can be pushed open, but it won't open by itself. It requires the combined strength of every chosen one who says yes, every senior who refuses to believe they're finished, every gray-haired warrior who still believes God can use them. When you step into your calling, you're not just changing your story, you're adding your weight to push that gate wider. Can you hear it? That deep, rumbling sound. That's the gate beginning to creak. That's the sound of heaven responding to the prayers of the faithful. That's the echo of eternity shifting because the chosen ones are finally waking up to who they really are. Daniel 2:21 reminds us, He changes times and seasons. He deposes kings and raises up others. God moves through nations by moving through people. Your personal obedience becomes His national strategy. Your individual surrender becomes His generational plan. But here's the urgency that should grip your heart. That gate is heavy. It requires every available hand to push it open. If you stay on the sidelines, if you convince yourself you're too old or too insignificant, that gate might not open wide enough, and another generation will grow up in darkness because you didn't believe you mattered. The gate swings wide, but only if you step through, only if you stop making excuses about your age, only if you stop believing the lie that your best days are behind you. Only if you add your voice to the chorus of the faithful who are crying out for this nation to return to its divine purpose. This is why I'm asking you to do something that might feel uncomfortable. I need you to pass the torch. Share this message with someone who needs to hear it. Your one click might be the very thing that awakens another chosen one who's been sleeping through their destiny. Open the gate wider for others by ensuring this word reaches every corner where the faithful are waiting. But the question that will haunt you for the rest of your days is this. When heaven looks back at the 13th of September, 14th and 15th, will your name be written among those who helped push open the gate of nations, or will you be numbered among those who watched from the sidelines while destiny passed them by? Chosen one, you've felt it, haven't you? That inexplicable moment when you should have been in that car accident on Highway 95, but somehow you were delayed. That night you almost walked down the wrong street in Brooklyn, but something made you turn around. That phone call that came at exactly the right moment when you were about to make the biggest mistake of your life. You called it luck. You called it coincidence. You called it good timing. But what if I told you it was none of those things? What if I told you that invisible warriors with blazing swords have been surrounding you your entire life, and you never even knew their names? The truth that will shatter your understanding of every close call you've ever survived is this. You have never walked alone, not for a single step, not for a single breath, not for a single heartbeat. Psalm 91:11 declares with thunderous authority, "For he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways." Did you catch that? He will command his angels. Not suggest, not request. Command. And concerning you specifically. Right now, as you sit there listening to my voice, there are beings of pure light stationed at your four corners. Their wings span wider than your living room. Their swords burn with fire that makes the sun look dim. Their eyes never close, their vigilance never wavers, and their assignment has your name written in heaven's handwriting. But here's what breaks my heart, dear one. You've been living like an orphan when you're surrounded by heaven's royal guard. You've been walking in fear when legions march at your side. You've been crying, "Where is God?" when his armies have been deflecting arrows you never even saw coming. Think back to that moment in 1987 when you almost lost everything. Remember how it all turned around in a way that made no earthly sense? That wasn't random. That was warrior angels executing divine orders. Remember that diagnosis that should have destroyed you, but somehow you're still here, still breathing, still fighting. Those weren't just prayers being answered. Those were celestial interventions happening in operating rooms while surgeons worked with hands they didn't know were being guided. Every near miss, every last-second rescue, every time you whispered, "That was close." You were witnessing warfare in the heavens that your human eyes couldn't perceive. But the 13th of September, 14th and 15th are different. These aren't ordinary days when your guardian angels work in whispers and shadows. These are the days when heaven's armies drop their camouflage. when the invisible becomes undeniable, when what has been hidden in plain sight steps into the light. The spiritual temperature is rising. Can you feel it? The atmosphere around your life is shifting because reinforcements are arriving. Not just your personal guardian, not just the angels assigned to your family line. I'm talking about battalions, legions, the kind of heavenly backup that only gets deployed when something monumental is about to break loose in the earth. You want to know why the enemy has been fighting you so hard lately, why the attacks have intensified, why everything seems to be falling apart just when breakthrough should be breaking through. Because he sees them coming. He knows what you can't see yet. The sky above your house is filling with warriors, and hell is terrified of what happens when you finally realize you're not alone. Chosen one, listen to me carefully. You are not walking into the 13th of September, 14th and 15th alone. You're not entering this prophetic window with just your faith and your prayers. You're stepping forward with armies at your side, shields raised, swords drawn, and victory already declared from heaven's throne room. Every step you take, they take. Every door you approach, they've already secured. Every mountain you climb, they've already conquered the peak. The battle isn't yours to fight anymore. Your job is simply to walk forward while warriors clear the path. This is why you can feel the shift. This is why something in your spirit knows these days are different. The veil between heaven and earth is thinning, and the escort that has always been there is becoming impossible to ignore. Comment, I am covered right now. That's not just agreement. That's your shield in this prophetic hour. That's you acknowledging what has always been true. You are not a victim walking through a dangerous world. You are royalty with an escort that never sleeps. But the question that will determine everything about these next 3 days is this. Will you walk like someone who knows they're protected, or will you keep cowering like someone who's forgotten their royal guard? The angels are waiting for your answer. Chosen one, do you feel it? That strange pulling away, that distance growing between you and people who used to understand you. That loneliness that sits in your chest like a stone, making you wonder if you've done something wrong. Let me tell you something that will shake you to your core. You haven't lost anything. You've been separated. And that separation isn't punishment, it's preparation. The prophet Amos declared it with crystal clarity. Can two walk together except they be agreed? Amos 3:3. These aren't just ancient words carved in stone, beloved. They're a divine principle operating in your life right now, in this very moment, as September's prophetic days approach. Heaven is performing what I call the Great Separation. And if you're feeling the ache of it, if you're wondering why conversations feel shallow with people who used to know your heart, if you're questioning why family members suddenly seem like strangers, you're not losing your mind, you're gaining your assignment. Think about this carefully. How many Sunday dinners have become battlefields? How many phone calls end in frustrated silence? How many times have you tried to share what God is doing in your life, only to see blank stares and polite smiles that cut deeper than any sword? You thought you were the problem. You thought you were changing too much, becoming too intense, too spiritual, too different. But what if I told you that your difference isn't the issue, it's the evidence? Evidence that you're being called higher while others choose to remain comfortable in the shallow end of faith. The threshing floor doesn't apologize for separating wheat from chaff. It simply does what it was designed to do. And beloved, these prophetic days of September are heaven's threshing floor. What can endure the wind of God's Spirit will remain. What cannot will be blown away like dust. I know this hurts. I know you've cried into your pillow wondering why your own children don't call anymore, why your grandchildren seem more interested in their phones than your wisdom, why friends of 40 years suddenly find excuses not to visit. The pain is real. The loneliness cuts deep. But listen to me with everything in you. Your isolation isn't rejection, it's divine selection. Jesus himself warned us in Matthew 10:36, "A man's foes shall be they of his own household." Did you think this was just poetry? Did you imagine this wouldn't touch your life? The separation starts closest to home because that's where the testing is most intense. That's where your calling is most threatened by familiar voices whispering, "You used to be normal. What happened to you?" What happened to you is that God marked you. What happened is that you stopped settling for surface-level religion and started hungering for the depths of His presence. What happened is that while others were content to play church, you became the church. And that transformation creates an unbridgeable gap between the called and the comfortable. But here's where it gets dangerous for your soul. The enemy wants you to interpret this separation as abandonment. He wants you to believe that your increasing loneliness means God is pulling away too. He whispers lies in your 3 a.m. moments. If you were really chosen, people would be drawn to you, not repelled by you. That's a lie from the pit of hell. Noah preached for 120 years and converted no one except his family. Was Noah a failure? Jeremiah was called the weeping prophet because his message was rejected by an entire nation. Was Jeremiah abandoned by God? John the Baptist lived in the wilderness, eating locusts and honey, crying out to a generation that thought he was crazy. Was John irrelevant? The separation you're experiencing isn't proof of your failure, it's proof of your calling. The wheat doesn't fellowship with the chaff. Light has no communion with darkness, and the chosen cannot walk in agreement with those who've made peace with mediocrity. Your loneliness is not loss, it's proof of separation for elevation. Every relationship that has grown cold, every conversation that now feels forced, every gathering where you feel like an outsider in your own family, these aren't accidents, they're appointments. Divine appointments where heaven is showing you who can walk with you into the next level and who must be left behind. I need you to understand something that will change how you see this season. God isn't just separating you from people, He's separating you for people. There are souls yet to be born who will need your refined voice. There are wounded hearts waiting in tomorrow's tragedy who will require your tested comfort. There are battles yet to be fought that will demand your purified prayers. But you cannot carry them if you're still tied to those who drain your oil. You cannot pour into empty vessels if your own lamp is being depleted by relationships that no longer serve your destiny. This is why the great separation feels so ruthless. It has to be. Your calling is too precious to be hindered by voices that can't hear what you hear. Your assignment is too urgent to be delayed by hearts that don't burn with your fire. So I'm asking you to do something that might feel impossible, but is absolutely necessary. Stop fighting the separation. Stop begging people to understand you who were never meant to walk your path. Stop trying to convince your family that you haven't lost your mind when God has given you His mind. Instead, declare with holy boldness, "I am set apart." Say it until it stops hurting. Declare it until it starts healing. Proclaim it until you realize that your separation isn't a sentence, it's a promotion. You haven't been demoted to loneliness. You've been promoted to a level where shallow relationships can't survive. The question burning in the furnace of your heart right now is this: will you mourn what was, or will you embrace what's coming? Because on the other side of this great separation, there's a great gathering, and the family God is preparing for you will know your language, share your fire, and walk in your rhythm. But first, you must release those who cannot journey where you're going. Chosen one, you've walked through fire and survived the flood. You've endured the wilderness and weathered the storm. But everything, every tear, every sleepless night, every moment you questioned if God had forgotten your name, it was all preparation for this moment when heaven places a mantle on your shoulders. Do you remember Elijah on Mount Carmel? After calling down fire from heaven, after proving God's power before all Israel, he found himself running scared into the wilderness, broken, exhausted, ready to die under that broom tree. But God wasn't finished with him. 1 Kings 19:19 tells us that when Elijah found Elisha plowing in the field, he threw his mantle over him. Not a gentle placement, he threw it. Because mantles aren't given, they're transferred with force, with urgency, with divine authority. That same mantle is descending over your life right now. The 13th of September, 14th, and 15th aren't just dates marked on your calendar, they're the appointed time when heaven says, the apprentice season is over, the mantle awaits. But here's what will shake you to your core. This mantle carries weight that will crush those who aren't ready. Elisha had to burn his plows and sacrifice his oxen before he could follow. The old life had to die completely. Are you ready to burn the bridges to your comfort zone? Are you prepared to sacrifice the familiar for the supernatural? The enemy has been whispering lies in your ear for decades. You're too old. You've missed your chance. God uses younger people for big things. That's exactly why hell fears your mantle more than any other generation. You've been tested by time. You've been refined by fire. You've been proven faithful when others quit. Moses was 80 when he received his burning bush commission. Abraham was 75 when God called him to father nations. Anna was 84 when she prophesied over baby Jesus. Your age isn't your limitation, it's your qualification. The mantle descending on you carries authority that can only be worn by someone who's walked through hell and came out praising God. Think about this carefully. Why do you think the attacks against your life have been so relentless? Why have you faced battles that would have destroyed lesser souls? Because the enemy saw your mantle before you did. He's been trying to kill you before you could wear it. Every financial crisis, every health scare, every relationship betrayal was hell's attempt to prevent this moment when you step into the authority God marked you to carry. But you're still here, still breathing, still believing. That's proof the mantle is yours. Here's the shocking truth about this prophetic window. If you miss the 13th of September, 14th and 15th, the mantle passes to another generation. Not because God is cruel, but because mantles require immediate obedience. They can't wait for convenience or comfort. When Elisha hesitated, when he asked to kiss his parents goodbye, Elijah's response was sharp. Go back. What have I done to you? The mantle demands total commitment. What you carry will shift atmospheres. When you walk into a room, darkness will flee. When you speak, demons will tremble. When you pray, heaven will move. That's why hell has fought you so hard. That's why the warfare intensifies as these dates approach. The enemy knows that once you put on this mantle, his reign of terror in your bloodline ends forever. This mantle isn't just for you, it's for your children, your grandchildren, your community. Entire bloodlines have been waiting for someone in their family tree to finally step up and break the chains. You're not just receiving authority, you're becoming a generational deliverer. But mantles require action. Faith without works is dead. If this word is burning in your chest, if you feel the weight of destiny settling on your shoulders, you must respond. Comment. 555 below this represents overflowing grace, the supernatural empowerment heaven is releasing over your life right now. Share this message because you become a carrier of light to another chosen soul still sleeping in their calling. Subscribe so you don't miss the next trumpet sound from heaven. And if the Spirit moves you, sow a seed into this ministry because every gift is oil for the lamp. Let the flame never go out. The mantle is descending. The choice is yours. Will you wear it with the authority of heaven, or will you let it pass to another generation? Time is running out, chosen one. The mantle awaits your answer. Beloved chosen one, as we reach the end of this sacred encounter, I need you to carry these eternal truths with you, like precious jewels in your heart. Remember this, the 13th of September, 14th and 15th are not just dates on your calendar, they are divine appointments with destiny. The mantle awaiting you isn't a burden to bear, but an authority to wield. You are not too old, not too late, and certainly not forgotten. Every gray hair on your head is a crown of wisdom. Every wrinkle, a map of God's faithfulness through the storms you've weathered. But more than that, remember, you are never walking this journey alone. Even when the road feels uncertain, even when doubt whispers lies in your ear, even when the weight of calling feels too heavy for your shoulders, the Creator of the universe is working behind the scenes on your behalf. He's moving mountains you can't see, opening doors you haven't found yet, and orchestrating breakthrough you can't even imagine. And right here, in this community of believers, you have thousands of brothers and sisters who understand your struggles, who believe in your calling, and who are ready to stand with you in prayer. We're not just viewers on a screen, we're a family united by faith, connected by hope, and bound together by the love of Christ. Let me ask you this final question, and let it settle deep in your spirit. Now that you know who you really are, a mantle bearer, a chosen vessel, destined for kingdom impact, how will you walk differently when you wake up tomorrow morning? Before you answer that question, I want to pray over you. Right now, wherever you are, I want you to close your eyes and let these words wash over your spirit like healing oil. Heavenly Father, I lift up every precious soul who has heard this message tonight, Lord. You see their hearts, you know their struggles, you've counted every tear they've cried in secret. But Father, you also see their mantle, you know their calling. You've already written their victory story. God, I pray that you would silence every voice of doubt that has whispered, "You're not enough." I pray that you would break every chain of fear that has held them captive. I pray that you would open their eyes to see the doors you're already opening, the opportunities you're already creating, the authority you're already releasing. Father, place your hand upon their shoulders right now. Let them feel your presence. Let them know that they are loved beyond measure, chosen beyond doubt, and destined for greatness beyond their wildest dreams. Give them the courage to step into their mantle, the wisdom to steward their authority, and the faith to trust your timing, even when they can't see the full picture. Let the 13th of September, 14th, and 15th be the turning point where everything changes. In Jesus' mighty name I pray. Amen. Now, I want to hear from you. In the comments below, share how this message has impacted your heart. What shifted in your spirit tonight? What are you believing God for in this prophetic season? Don't hold back, your testimony might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. If you're ready to walk in your mantle, type, "I receive my authority." If this message touched your soul, share it with someone who needs to remember they're not forgotten. And hit that subscribe button, because your journey into destiny is just beginning, and there's so much more God wants to reveal to you. Thank you for staying with me through this entire message. Your time is precious, and you chose to invest it in seeking God's heart for your life. That tells me everything I need to know about your character and your calling. Remember, beloved, the mantle is yours, the authority is real, and your greatest days aren't behind you, they're just beginning. Until we meet again, walk in your calling, rest in His love, and never forget you are chosen. God bless you mightily.